Okay, well, that was nice enough. Not too bad, but not glorious either, so... Now that we're officially done with the Genesis version, I guess it's time to take it out from the Sega Ah! But how did you... I thought You know what? Never mind. Let's just go ahead and move on to the Saturn version. So, here it is, Sonic 3D Blast for the Sega Saturn. Remember that amazing intro scene we got in the Genesis version? Well, take a look at this! Quite an improvement, I would say. Okay, yeah, it's kinda like comparing the older Captain America movie to the new one, but it still has to be mentioned. But I don't like it just because of the graphics. The music here is also a whole lot better. I like the tune here more. Plus, the flickies are actually kinda cute here. Aww. There's also this cool little map that you get before each level that shows Sonic's progression. But I always wondered why he's zigzagging all over the place. If he wants to defeat Botnik, why not just head straight to him? The game itself looks better, of course. I mean, putting it side to side isn't even worth it as it's pretty obvious. Rather than the checkerboard look of the Genesis version, the Saturn one actually has more details on the ground, such as bumps or metallic grating. All the backgrounds are a lot more dynamic, as you can see leaves flowing in the wind, and even have some cool weather effects, like in Rusty Ruin. God, I hope Hell Flicky isn't here. God! Oh, it's purple now. Huh. Let's talk about controls now. The Saturn's D-pad isn't exactly the most comfortable thing I ever used in my life, but if you're one of those who own the analog controller, you are in luck. This made control so much easier. Though I'm one of the few who don't really mind the Genesis' D-pad, it can hurt your fingers after a while, and the analog stick feels more natural for this game. Another difference is the special stages. You can only get one emerald per act, meaning the only way you can get all the 7 is by the 4th level Diamond Dust. Instead of being stuck on a narrow bridge, Tails or Knuckles take you to one of those half-pipes, very similar to the one in Sonic 2. Instead of just being a carbon copy of those though, sometimes the road will have springs, and even throw you into a loop! Literally. Between the two, the Saturn one is a lot more fun. For one, it is not vertigo-inducing like the Genesis one. And two, the design is a lot more creative. Though it isn't without its flaws. Playing those special stages with the analog stick is not recommended, as you need to be precise in your location or you get hit. So I recommend using the D-pad as it provides that precision you need. The loop segments may look neat, but it's hard to collect rings while you go all over the place, so it takes a little bit of practice. But with all those little qualms I have, it is definitely better than the Genesis one. When you do collect all the 7 Chaos Emeralds, rather than turning into Super Sonic, which will be pointless anyways in such a confined level design, you get to face the final boss. While it's not too hard, I have to say I prefer the Genesis finale much more. Yes, the Saturn one looks better, we all know that, but I love how Sonic is facing the final boss and the background is all black, making you feel that you're in an empty void. The music is very quiet, but still very ominous and imposing. The Saturn version, however, well, the background is way too busy, and the final boss track, it kind of feels like a cheap remix of the original one. It's funny how the final fight in the PC version is as clean as the Saturn one, but still dark and empty like the Genesis. And before you ask, the PC version is almost exactly the same as the Saturn one, except the addition of a save game feature and a rather bland variation of the special stages. The Genesis version only has text endings, whereas the Saturn one actually gives you 2 full motion videos, depends on the type of ending you get. The bad ending always makes me cringe. That stare, my god! The worst part about the Saturn version is the load times. They are long. But talking about it won't do too much, so let's have an experiment. Let's see how much I can play of Green Grove Act 1 of the Genesis version before I can even start the Saturn's one. Okay, it may not be fair considering one is on a cartridge and the other one is on a disc, but they were disc games that actually had short load times. Being on a disc, however, gives the Saturn version one unique point: its high-quality soundtrack. While the soundtrack of the Genesis version is composed by the now renowned sonic composer Jun Senoue, the Saturn version is composed by Richard Jacques, who was behind games like Jet Set Radio and... No! I'm not going there! Suffice to say, comparing the two different soundtracks honestly deserve its own video, so for now, let's just sum it up. The Saturn soundtrack is very orchestral and relies heavy on atmosphere. For example, Rusty Ruin's Hunting Choir definitely adds to the unique experience. The Genesis one relies more on the tunes and melodies themselves. They're not as memorable as the older Sonic games, but there are a lot of fantastic tunes over here, especially Rusty Ruin. Some of them will even come back in Sonic Adventure. Both soundtracks will later be remixed in Sonic Chronicles, but the less I talk about that game, the better. Overall, which soundtrack is better? The short answer is to each his own. I heard the majority prefer the Saturn one, but the Genesis one is definitely no slouch. Speaking of the general feedback, most people hate this game, saying it's a betrayal to the Sonic legacy and saying the controls and the structure makes it terrible, blah 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 blah. Do you remember what I said at the beginning of this video? This isn't a platformer. It just so happens to be a puzzle game where you jump on things. I do think hitting enemies is a pain, and wish the homing attack was actually an attack and not a shield power-up, but I actually do kinda like it. But why? It's because I like exploring the levels and finding all the different secrets that require a little bit of thinking. Going back to Rusty Ruin, there is this hidden door over there. All you have to do is just spin dash and get to Knuckles' location, and that's about it, right? Wrong! Because he's blocked by those pillars, you have to use a twirling pad. So the challenge here is to go from point A to point B without getting hit. And when you actually succeed, it feels really rewarding. Nothing like going through a part of the level, finding a hidden door that takes you to a previous part, only to find out that one of the two characters is waiting for you there. Which makes you wonder how they got there in the first place. Also, I like the level themselves, they're very cool in design. I do wish that one of them came back in Sonic Generations. Not to mention that both soundtracks are great. As to which version is better, again, to each his own. The Genesis version has a catchier soundtrack, it is easier, and a lot quicker due to the short loading times. Whereas the Saturn version looks better, has better sound quality, and is harder. Plus, you can play the Genesis games on games like Sonic Mega Collection, and since those allow you to use analog sticks, it makes the game much easier to control. Overall, I like them both for what they are, and I would probably rank them between the 6 and 7 mark. They're not great, but they're not bad games either. Just go with the right mindset, and you will have a blast! Pun not intended. Okay, fine, but it sounds better than you'll have a Flicky's Island. Oh, well guys, it's time to end this video. Make sure you subscribe or leave a nice comment. And I hope you enjoyed this review on both the Saturn version of Sonic 3D Blast and the Genesis version.